I'm funny how? I mean, funny like I'm a clown, I amuse you?
I have come here to chew bubblegum and kick ass.
I'm 37?
I'll have what she's having.
Well done! Well done!
Hi!
Hello!
Hi! This is like, I don't know which episode it is. I lost count. It's not like we have been posting a lot of them, like we are at our 2000 episode, but like still, I lost count. Doesn't matter. Hello, Bruno. How are
Hello.
you? Welcome
I'm
back,
fine.
everybody.
Welcome
And
back.
if you're new, hi. What's up? Join us. Seriously, we've been talking about like for 3 hours
Yeah.
or two, almost 3 hours
Yes.
about a lot of bullshit, and now we have to change like languages, and I'm like, we have been discussing so much in Portuguese that let's just do a Portuguese episode. And then I reminded, and then I recall that I don't believe that we would have a Portuguese audience.
I don't think so.
And I don't feel like Portuguese people are very into podcasts yet. Or if they are, it's like very weird podcasts, like the radio ones, and sometimes about like family insurance and medical insurance
I think
stuff.
they're more into like people that have made money, like the guy from that company, Proxies. He made a lot of money. Now he has his own podcast where he's like championing for the new masculinity and for the new man and saying stuff
Oh,
like
one of those. Yeah.
yeah,
No,
saying
no, but
stuff
like
like women should
that's
be in the
also
kitchen and stuff like that.
that's also like a very common podcast
Yeah.
trope in the States, like I
Like the
feel
Andrew
like
Tate kind of
you
podcast.
have a bunch, the Jordan Petersons ones. You have a lot of podcasters, who just preach on those types of ideologies.
Yeah.
And we really can't say, I don't know, I feel like podcasts are a new way of communicating and just expressing thoughts. I don't think that everyone has good thoughts or just knows how to express them. And sometimes I feel like I don't know how to express them. But you know what? It's a free time, okay? We live in an age where everyone can have a podcast if they want to. I mean, it doesn't mean that it's good or bad. It just means that you can have one and have fun with it. But
most of the podcasts that I come across are actually like in Reels, in Instagram Reels and stuff like that. Like they isolate little bits. And most of my reactions are like, oh, God, you should read more or you should study more because you're just talking bullshit.
But sometimes even though we have like degrees and we should have some sort of more an intellect of even like a research type of ability, I feel like sometimes we also just drift apart and just say a lot of bullshit because it's allowed. Come on, it's allowed. But I don't know if once you take your PhD, it's allowed. I don't know, I feel like the PhD has a different types of connotations. Like you have a PhD, you spend so much time and you still speak like that and you still say shit like that. But going back to Jordan Peterson, someone who actually has a PhD and talks about what he talks. So, I mean, if he can speak like that, I should be able to.
If you want to say stuff like that, I think it's just like to sell books, isn't it? Just to make money.
Isn't that like every entrepreneur nowadays?
Yeah. It's kind of thing.
Let's write a book and then let's do a podcast.
Yeah, if you look at like Jordan Peterson and you put it across like Tony Robbins that doesn't have studies at all, and you're like, oh, and it's the same person. They're saying exactly the same bullshit, but okay.
Would you listen to any of the Portuguese politicians? Do you think like they have the dialect to be interesting enough? Because every time they're like on the TV speaking, I'm like, I'm so done with it. Like, I'm so done with this.
No, because it's always the same, isn't it?
Bring back the 19th century, the early 20th century philosophers and politicians. Like they actually had stuff to say. Nowadays, it's so boring, man. Imagine
they always say like, the same, but with different words.
Come on, weird. Imagine if like Engels had like a podcast. Imagine.
Yeah.
It would be great.
That would be fun.
And then he would be like, and today I'll have my bestie Marks come in. And
Yeah.
he's like a special guest.
Especially they could explain stuff and be more direct with stuff, isn't it? Because
Yeah.
that's the
And
thing
imagine like
with
if
those writers. They always try to complicate stuff, and it's a very
yeah.
circular writing. They always go around one idea.
Hate it. Like you have so many philosophers that do that.
Yeah.
It's like be for real now, be like direct. Although I feel like Marx is very direct in his writings. I don't feel like he mumbles a lot when
No, he
he's.
doesn't.
I mean, I feel like he has one idea and he like writes the same idea but in different words for a
Yeah.
whole text. But it's all very comprehensive. At least I feel
Yeah.
like it doesn't happen the same with other authors. I feel
Oh,
like
no.
Heidegger
Oh,
or
Heidegger is awful.
But
Heidegger
imagine
is
like
awful.
a podcast between like Durkheim and Max Weber and then
And
there's
Heidegger.
like
Oh, it actually would
or
be fun because they didn't really like each other.
that would be you know what? Yeah, and like with Carl Jung and Freud, like
Oh,
when they
yeah.
actually had a hate relationship,
Yeah,
that would
yeah.
be also pretty cool. Like
Like it had to be recorded like in a ring kind of thing, so they could go out on punches, like showing like, oh, my Oedip complex is bigger than yours, and start punching each other.
you know what? That would be such a more fun way of like studying. Although I
Oh,
don't
yeah.
feel, do you feel like are podcasts nowadays like a reliable source in academia?
I think so because there was a
I never
change
saw
where,
it though.
yeah, there's actually a change because in Portugal we use
The American
Sociological
psychologist, yeah.
Association.
Although I don't use that
Oh,
one
you don't use
because
that one?
I'm not a psychologist. I think it's so strange why we use this.
Yeah.
And my field of studies, although it goes a lot with history studies, it's
Yeah.
really annoying when we use the American
Psychology
psychology.
Association. They actually did a change in order for you to quote from podcasts. You can actually do that. There's a rule now,
Yeah,
as you put
okay,
it in
because I know
your
they have like for
bibliography.
tweets and
Yeah.
for YouTube
Yeah,
videos
yeah, yeah.
and like from a lot of social media, because nowadays everyone has social media. We have a lot of information coming from social media, but I feel like if like a tweet is something that you can quote and use
Yeah.
as a source for something, then why not a podcast as well? Because I feel like a lot of people who have podcasts are more credible than people who have Twitter or
Oh, yeah.
I'm
Like
sorry, you cannot fight me on that one.
one of my favorite 21st century anthropologists, he died 2 years ago. One of his great studies, I think it was that book that I showed you, Bullshit Jobs. It was all done through Twitter. He started on
Oh yeah,
Twitter.
the
You remember?
research, yeah, the
Yeah,
people
the research and everything.
yeah.
It was all done through Twitter. And he used Twitter to make it like he wrote it with people. Like when he came up with findings and he says like, oh, I can divide this in 5 categories. What do you think? And people were allowed to express their opinions on it. I think it's
Wasn't it
actually
like
quite cool.
with a poll, a Twitter poll that people start participating on
Yeah,
the
he did
yeah.
like that, and then he set up an email account so that people could contact him. But it's anyway, it's a
And it's
wonderful
crazy
book.
because a lot of people started sending
Yeah,
emails and he
I
was
have a
like,
bullshit
this is
job.
gonna be a book. This is
Yeah.
gonna be a book. For those who don't know, this is like a book called Bullshit Jobs. And it's a very interesting book that started with a social media experiment, research,
Yeah.
poll kind of stuff, which is pretty fun if you think in terms of research, because nowadays, who wants to go to a library?
But
Well, I do, but like
some of the
you know.
podcasts that I listen, people actually they do a lot of research for the episodes, and they
Yeah.
try to bring up some like really good points on it, but they'll do the work for it. It's not just like people that just like talking about their own experience or their own like bubble of experience.
I feel like podcasts are such a huge outlet for content, you know. So basically, you can make it your own diary, and you can be like a comedy podcast where you just tell stories and be comedic, or you can be more scientific or
Yeah.
more political or more day to day, or it doesn't matter. You have so many options, so many themes. It's like, YouTube also does that, or even what type of Instagram account you have. You also have a lot of different types of Instagram pages based on your niche, basically.
Yeah.
That
What I think podcasting does, because people are not like trying to be like online all the time, or because podcasts will give you the kind of freedom that you can set up like an episode every 2 weeks or sometimes every 3 weeks, because you need to do the research and everything. And as you build up your audience, people will still listen to you. Whereas like in YouTube, they have that needs of posting every day or 2 or 3 times a day.
Why
So
do you think that?
it's because of the algorithms and how it works and how
Oh,
in
okay,
order
okay.
to reach people. Like if you want to do something that's really worthwhile, or if you want to teach something to people, it's difficult because you can't be posting like 2 or 3 times a day. You
But I
can't
do
be
feel
doing that.
like video essays and YouTubers who work on essays videos where they choose a theme and they actually do that formula where they take a couple of weeks to do the research, especially if they are a smaller channel and they work by themselves. They edit the
Yeah.
videos, they plan them, they do the research, they film themselves, all that work, which is how you actually start on such businesses, such like creating an account later on when you are a bigger, let's say, influencer, whatever, in
Yeah.
the term of you have a bigger voice and an account, maybe have enough of an income to actually ask people to help you to edit or help you with the research so you can produce more content quickly and you can
Yeah.
post it sooner and once a week for example. But I do think that video essays are type of content that takes a bit more time because of the research. I mean, if you suck at it and you just like to talk bullshit without, you're gonna research
Yeah.
there in the moment and then edit it out. I mean, of course, you can do it twice a week if you want
Oh
to,
yeah,
but
you read like dodgy media and like some dodgy news, and it's be like, oh, I just came up to this conclusion, and be like, ah,
some
no,
people are
not
like
really.
that, or you just
Yeah.
value your own subjective opinion on stuff, and you're like, there. Listen, I think, and it's just I think every time. I
Oh yeah,
think.
yeah. I think.
I think objectivity. I don't know that. It's
Yeah,
just what I think. Well,
I
that's
think
what I
this.
call real narcissism.
Yeah, yeah.
It's a form of it, very disguised, very well
Oh yeah,
disguised, but it's like, come on.
and it's
Where is the selfness?
the new thing. It's a thing that's like, this is possible. Well, everything is possible anyway. So what you're trying to do or what you're trying to say, it's like,
What?
this could happen.
No,
And it's like,
this
what?
this could happen.
Yeah,
Or conspiracy
yeah,
theories.
it gets
Like,
like a big scare, like, oh, in the next 2 weeks, a meteor can reach Earth. And it's like, well, it happens every day. So
you
what
know
you're
what?
trying to say, like,
Saying that, it would be really fun for us to do like an episode on Don't Look Up, the movie.
oh yeah, that movie is
Yeah,
amazing.
yeah, it would be really an interesting conversation about
Oh
it.
yeah.
Well, tell us, guys, if you would be interested in like we have a list and a plan of other movies, but we can like manage it if you're very interested in having an episode on Don't Look Up. It would be actually super cool. Tell us something. I
Yeah.
mean, say it, and we will do it. Why not? It might be fun. But this episode, we are going to be discussing a very interesting movie. It was my choice, and I choose Revolutionary Road. Road. Oh my God, what is happening? This is awful. Like there are so many R's,
Yeah.
and I'm not an English native speaker, so forgive my roar. Roads.
Roads.
Roads. Revolutionary roads.
Yeah.
This is so chaotic. Anyway, we're gonna leave it like that. Have you ever watched the movie? Because this is not my first time I've watched it, but I was really
I
interested
hadn't
in
watched the
doing.
movie, which is funny because I have this weird relationship with some Mendes work, where I only saw American Beauty in the cinemas. All these other films, I never went back to the theater to actually see them.
A
I've
lot of
always.
people have only seen American Beauty, which is a movie that I have not seen.
Oh yeah,
Do
really?
not come from me. I have not seen. It's
Yeah.
like I've been wanting to see that movie for quite a long time, but I had a guy tell me that I reminded him a lot of that movie, and I got a little bit freaked out because I kind of know what the movie is about, and I was like, I don't want to watch it. I don't want to be related to that movie.
I don't
I don't
know
want to.
where. Can't really see the connection, but okay.
Well, you see, you are actually normal man, you know. That guy wasn't. He was a
Okay.
bit of a weirdo.
Okay.
Let's not spoil how it ended, but like I've been wanting to watch that movie and I will, but I know that a lot of people are very familiar with Sam Mendes' work because of American Beauty.
Yeah, I like his work especially because he works with one of my favorite photography directors, which is Roger Deakins. And when you see a film that's being shot by Roger Deakins, you are in for a treat. And Roger
Okay.
Deakins has done a lot of work with the Coen brothers,
Which you
and
love.
which I love. Their films, the Coen brothers films with Roger Deakins, are just amazing to watch. Like even Jarhead by Sam Mendes, it's Roger Deakins that shot it, and they always are beautiful, beautiful films to look at. Sometimes even like the image, like the poetry within the image, is part of the storytelling. And that's one of the things that I like with Sam Mendes' direction. You can see that there was time lost with the mise-en-scène, with the creation of the mise-en-scène, and the way that colors are used, like in this film. I was like,
He worked for the Revolutionary War. Oh my God, it's gonna be awful this episode. I will not be able to say the name of the movie. This is so bad. I didn't know I had such a difficulty saying the name. Like maybe I was always like saying it on my mind or just
you're probably
reading it. I
gonna
was like,
block me. Let's say Revolutionary Roads. Okay.
road.
Roads.
Out.
You need to sing that song. The wheels on the bus go round and round.
The wheels on the bus go round and oh God. I'm gonna just make a disclaimer. I don't know how many minutes we've been into the episode, but like just a quick disclaimer. I will not be able to say the name of the movie and I will fuck
Yeah.
it up because my tongue just rolls differently, I guess. And I apparently cannot say road. Oh my God. I'm not doing it on purpose. So I'm gonna say the movie, and if I attempt to say the name of the movie, you're just gonna have to deal with it, okay? It has a beauty to it for sure, but it's not like something that I was so captivated by. But I think it's beautiful, like beautifully shot in the cinematography. It's actually gorgeous when I think about it, but it's not like something so out of the box. It's very serene, great colors, but it didn't like made me gasp for like to
Oh,
look who
there's
is
a
the
few times there
cinematographer.
you can see, like, especially within the house, when he's shooting the house, like to the way the kitchen is always filmed. Like, because whenever you have the kitchen film, you always have the three walls of the kitchen, and you have all that monogamy colored kind of thing, which is like a
Yeah,
late afternoon kind of color,
yeah.
contrasting with the gray and the greenish of the rest of the house,
And even the outside.
even the outsides and everything, and even like the way like the trees are and everything, like the beautiful scene when Leonardo DiCaprio is running through the trees and everything.
Yeah, that is beautiful. Yeah.
You kind of get all this, the color scheme that he uses and the lights and everything. It is a beautiful film to watch it, although it's not the main part of the story. Like Jarhead, he used it more. In here, there's like these little snippets, like in Frank's character. Like the colors around Frank's character are very important to where he is mentally in that scene. I found that like
Oh,
really
okay.
genius.
Like well, I thought about more of the themes of the movie, but
Oh
now
yeah,
that
sure.
you are speaking about the colors and a more visual, analytic way of watching this movie is you actually make a good point of it. Yeah. Well, for those who don't know, Revolutionary Road is a 2008 romance. It is a romance. I mean,
Yeah, it's a romance
it's a
drama.
drama. It's a drama. I feel like it's a
Yeah.
drama. Yeah. And it's like a lot of people say that this is the movie that shows you what would have happened if Jack would not have drowned on the Titanic.
Yeah.
Because this movie, for those who don't know, like this movie stars Kate Winslet and Leonardo DiCaprio as the Titanic, and it's from 2008, so they are a bit older than when they did Titanic. But I think everyone knows how Titanic ends. And a lot of people say that this movie by Sam Mendes is basically a version if Jack didn't drown. So,
Yeah.
and it's so funny because they hate each other. Like, it's such an intense movie. They're always fighting. Like, mom and dad are fighting, So it's just, thank God he drowned. That's my conclusion. Thanks for
Yeah.
coming to my TED Talk. Thank God Jack drowned.
And Kate Winslet was married with Sam Mendes at the time of this film. They were
She
still married.
was, yes, she was. That is correct. Yeah.
I think the film comes from a novel written in
Yes,
the
it does.
60s.
From Rich and Yet.
Yeah,
Yes,
in the
it's a
60s.
novel.
One thing that caught my attention to it was like the novel was published in 62, something like that. To write that story in the United States at the time, that took bravery. He's probably telling the story, or it's very based on his own parents, because there's a lot of anger, there's a lot of like emotions, raw emotions in there, which is very difficult for someone to write about raw emotions unless you've been through them. And that was one of the things that caught my attention to it. Like the film, it's this entire thing about how people, they get married, they're happy, they get married, and now throughout the years they both drift apart and they become really unhappy.
I think from that point of view, it is a very contemporary movie. It's because it's an issue or a theme that you can still point to nowadays,
Oh, yeah.
for sure, in terms of married couples and expectations and whatnot, and how to make a relationship work, and how do you drift apart, and ambitions, and how your ambitions can collapses due to your expectations, and how do you stay together with someone, and how do you deal with having separate lives while you also have a life together. Nonetheless, this movie just shows you a lot of important themes, and like you said, it was published in 1961, and one of the most important things is that this movie is set post the World War II. So you have this American way of living that is just going back to the suburbs. And the movie set in the suburbs of the New York City. And it's this, the revolutionary life in the 1915s America suburbia. And there are a lot of themes that are brought up because of this way of living in the suburbs and the 1950s America, which we have to be talking about the 1950s in a more Western way, but more in a more specific American way of life, because it's the American dream. And we can't really just say the Western way of living, because after World War II, although some countries still had this dictatorship and the nationalism still, for instance, like in Portugal, it was still a thing.
Yeah.
A lot of countries actually had a liberation, and it was not just this way of living, but the dream from that for those countries was different. And to talk about the 1950s and this America suburbia life, you have to be in the States, in the States mindset, the United States mindset, which is a very predominant reference in a lot of movies from this time, a lot of melodramas, a lot of social science theory. I feel like this is one of the major critics that this, not only the Richard Yates book, but also the movie brings up.
Oh, yeah. There's a lot of subtext, either in the book and in the film. There's a lot of subtext that you can explore, like the fact that there's not one happy adult in that film.
Well, that's just adult life, No one is happy when they're out.
The only one that actually has more like a sense of things, it's the academic, and you can see that he's been treated with electric shocks. The mathematician, the one that has the PhD in mathematics.
Oh, the son, the guy who comes and visits them. Oh my God, like I totally was like, is getting electrified in that movie. I'm like,
No, you don't see it, but you can see the marks in his forehead, not his forehead, but his like temporal
the
lobe.
temples. Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh,
you can
okay.
see the marks. That was really ingenious how they did. They just did the marks there, but he has those marks. You need
Because that's
to
how, yeah, well, that's a very interesting way of looking at how you were treated psychiatrically
John, yeah,
and
his name.
how the mental health was
But the
like.
things that he says, like he's the one disrupting because he's the academic, although he's mathematics, but
Yeah,
he's
you
still an
are right.
academic.
He was
He,
an academic, yeah.
the way that he says things, like he's really onto the social science of the time and everything, and he's really
Yeah.
onto like you are miserable. Just go do something else with your life. You are miserable.
Maybe
But
he's the voice of Richard Yates in the sense
yeah,
of like looking critically. He's a character that is speaking from Richard Yates' voice, you
perspective.
know.
But
Yeah.
he's classified as a lunatic, and he went into a mental institution, and you can see the marks of electric shock being done to him. But
Yeah, I didn't notice it. But wait a
and
second, like wait a second. Maybe we should like talk about the synopsis about
yeah,
the
just
movie,
do like
no?
a little plot thing, kind of like
Okay, so
quickly.
like plot very quickly, guys. So basically, like this married couple hates each other. Okay, go on.
That's the plot. So they meet at this part when they're young, and the guy's full of dreams and everything, and all of a sudden the film
And
jumps
she
and they are
wants to be an
married.
actress, and it's like,
Yeah,
yes, we are
yeah,
going to rule the
like
world.
yes,
And
they
then
are
they're
in that
married and
phase.
miserable.
They're married and miserable. He works at the same company that his father worked for his entire life, which is a company that no one remembers his father working there, although
Which
his
is
father
so
worked.
funny.
Yeah,
It's so funny.
although
Come
his father worked
on.
like for 20 something years, but no one remembers the name of his father. And he's always trying to compensate for it. He's always trying to be better than his father. If you look at this being written in the 60s, it's actually awesome critic to patriarchy and all this, like the son has to be better than the father kind of thing. Like you have this, like the student will overcome the master, and the
Yeah,
son will
yeah.
overcome the father, and like, no, guys, chill out. It doesn't work like
And
that.
and the girl, you guessed it, is a housewife.
She's also very frustrated because she wanted to be an actress, and comes to a point where they are so miserable that she has this plan that they want to go to France, to Paris, where
Yeah.
you won't work. This was so amazing. Like, he won't work, she will be the one working. Like, she
Yes.
hopes to get the job in NATO or something like that, so
Yeah,
that it
and
doesn't need to work.
he
He will be
will
the domestic.
follow. Yeah, but more than being the domestic, he will follow his dreams.
Yeah,
He
that
will know what he wants to do
yeah,
with
he
his
doesn't know
life.
what he wants to do and what his dreams are.
And you know
And
what's funny with that premise? It's that they're changing spots, you know, when she
yeah,
suggests going to Paris. So you will not be working because you will be thinking about what are your dreams.
yeah,
But she, as a housewife now, would have that spot, you know.
yeah,
But she's not doing that job. She's not thinking about her dreams or what she wants to do. Or if she is, she's not actually following it. But
no.
she, by this plan to going to Paris, is giving him the opportunity to do that and to actually act on it, which is something that is so ironic when
Well,
I
it's
realized it. It's
patriarchy, isn't it? Like the entire film, or even the book, is it's a big critique on patriarchy and what patriarchy does, because it's always the man. Like, he's the provider. Like, she's at home, he's the provider. But she got, let's go to Paris because you love Paris. He wanted to go there again because he had been there during the war. Like, let's go to Paris. But like, she makes it as it's the priority, it's the man's well-being. Now you're gonna find out what you want to do because you're frustrated. Let's take care of you. Yeah, I think she actually says this. Let's take care of you. She wants to go to work. She will be working, but again, the priority is always him and his perspective, because nothing happens if the man doesn't want it. And there's a
well,
sense of happiness
and the
here.
movie actually proves that because nothing actually happens if
Yeah,
the man
if
doesn't
the man
want it.
doesn't want it.
Even even later on. But the whole, the American suburbia life is definitely like the home of patriarchy. It's definitely
yeah.
just how the patriarchy works. And
Yeah.
but it's very not clear, because the American way of life in the 50s, this suburban life, the idea of suburban life is like the patent picture. It's like the perfect picture, of suburban life. It's like a Norman Rockwell painting,
Yeah.
the perfect smiling suburban family with a perfect design porch, and the garden is beautiful, and the lawn is very well mowed.
Yes.
They usually have like more than one kid, because having one kid is, you have to have like at least 2 or 3 kids.
Or 4, like these
And
neighbors.
yeah, or 4. And the wife, of course, like a very, well-groomed, like the lawn housewife.
Yeah.
And the father, he works, he's very like heterosexual, No, the suburbans do not allow homosexuality,
Yeah.
y'all. They do not. And he's the breadwinner, of course, and he usually like, works in the city, whatever. So he gets like the car and he goes, say like waving goodbye. You know that image, like just
Yeah,
him
waving
waving the
goodbye. Yeah.
goodbye, and the wife with the apron, she's like,
Yeah.
goodbye, my love.
Yeah.
And they will be seeing later
Yeah.
when the dinner is ready.
Of
Okay.
course.
This is the suburban routine, basically. The suburban life. Do you have anything else you want to say about suburban life? Because I was like, you know what? I want to know the most common description of suburban life, because I have the image, but I want to know how to describe it. And this is what I got from all the different descriptions that I got.
Well, the suburban life, it's very
A
funny because
dog. Oh my God, a dog. Yeah, they usually have like a dog, a golden retriever. God
they
damn
have
it, a
to,
golden.
they normally have like a big dog. The way that the suburban life is done in this story, in this film, it's so ironic. Like, because that no one's happy there. Everyone is sad and miserable, but still they do like the waving,
Yeah,
and
you
they
know
do
what?
like the
Now that you say that, like that you are completely correct. Like I read this interview with Richard Yates, the guy who wrote the book, and he actually points exactly what you're saying. He actually says, and this in relation to April. April is the character that Kate Winslet plays. So she's a housewife, So with April, that within this perfect picture, and I quote, a great many Americans were deeply disturbed by all that, felt it to be an outright betrayal of our best and bravest revolutionary spirit. And that was the spirit I tried to embody in the character of April Wheeler, which is the main character, the housewife. And I feel like this is exactly what you were saying. Although it's like a perfect picture,
but it
behind
doesn't
the
exist.
scenes, yeah, it doesn't exist.
Like,
It's an idealistic point
it doesn't
of
exist. Like,
living,
you have other
way of living.
films, that or other directors that always critique this suburban American. Like Tim Burton's is a great example of, is one of the biggest critics of suburban America. Even if in Terrence Malick's film Tree of Life, you have this ugly suburban area that no one is happy with it.
You know what's funny about that? Because like this whole suburban picture perfect life is something that goes throughout American way of living, not only on the 50s, but also 60s, 70s. And it's an image that is promoted during the Cold War in relation to the Soviet
and it's done to
Union.
sell
So
houses.
and it's so amazing, because this picture is like the propaganda of the happy way of living, in contrast to the communist way of living that was also with the whole idea of having same type of buildings. It's always, everything is the same, but they are all depressed, while actually first of all, they weren't depressed, but fine. Whatever you want, whatever you want to believe. I mean, it's fine. But thing is, if you go and watch the propagandas that we're doing using the suburban way of living picture, is quite amazing when you think that a lot of the writings that come from this time, criticizing this time, actually go against this image, saying that actually people weren't really happy, especially women. Come on.
And you have all the pamphlets and all the tuna cans, like showing like a happy family, or when you have that happy family kind of poster where the wife is cooking and the man is sitting reading the newspaper, and the house is always everything is cleaned up and everything. So They're always wearing dresses with aprons and
Yeah, I mean, the advertisements that were created during this time are so misogynistic. It's actually
yeah.
no, but it's actually undeniable, you know. I wouldn't say that this is something to be discussed, like even argued in terms of it's completely there. It's very foolproof. It's like the
Yeah, it's
text
there.
even say it's not even the image, it's
Yeah, it's a
text,
text
but
and everything.
you know, if the man is happy, they would say happy wife, happy house or something like
Something
that.
like that, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I would say in the 50s, it was like if the man is happy, then everything is fine. Like, who cares if the woman would be happy or
And you had
not?
like not newspapers, like women's magazines, like, right? With articles like how to make a man happy.
Just
But
bend
everything,
over
yeah.
on your knees, just buy a new apron and
Just
cook
have
this dinner.
kids.
Just
Just
have
be ready.
kids, you know.
Yeah. Just be ready to have sex when he wants it.
Just breathe.
Yeah.
So, but it's true, and this is something very important, and we will talk about it a bit later. But the oppressive culture of women during the 1950s, the housewife in particular, was the convention and the model. And this was not only like in terms of the model of femininity, but of womanhood, which is a different concept. So important that came actually in the 60s, just as the Revolutionary War book. It came really to just dismantle this whole picture of the happy housewife. And this is why it's so important how it just started, you know, the second wave feminism in the West. This is what makes April character important through this lens view, you know, being stuck as a housewife, which, you know, let's be honest, it is a stuck position, you know, you don't have
Yeah.
any type of freedom. You live, in a way, you live objectified within your role to take care of, you know, everything, the house and the family, while also you have to take care of your appearance, because you know when you are objectified you don't really, your soul doesn't really count, because
Yes.
you know you become like an object, so you just have to take care of your appearance, of your body, of the material. So because you know objects don't have souls, so
Yeah.
you just have to take care of the physical form and everything that is around you. So this is like the job of a housewife, you know.
Yeah.
This is why, you know, every action that you see April take are little risks and decisions to try and gain some purpose and fulfill her soul and, you know, taste some sort of independence within herself. Even wanting to be an actress, you know, I don't know how you feel about that, but for me, I don't think that she wanting to be an actress is as innocent as just some sort of like need, want, or you know, a job that you would want to have. But I feel like being an actress is like you are playing different roles, and maybe this is like something that she as a housewife would like to just break free from her main role, you know, as something that is stuck, and just play someone else for 1 hour or two, you know. Maybe that's why I don't know if you get me. I don't know if
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
making
I get
sense
you.
right
That's a
now.
good point. That's a good point. But it's like if you go and think about the entirety of the industry, right? It's still a very patriarchy industry. Well, yes, changed a bit in the last years, but for those years, like in the 50s and 60s, it was male dominant, and everything that we heard about the Me Too movement was actually happening in the 50s and 60s. There's loads of stories, and they even put that in the films where a woman, in order to get a role, would have to sleep with the producer. So it's like it was one of the professions that women could get like financially independent from having to have a man or having to marry to a relationship in order to be like kind of quote unquote supported, because that's what you see with within the story. Like when they met, Frank seems a very different guy, doesn't he? Yes, he's full of dreams and he wants
Yeah,
to connect with the world and all that
yeah,
sort of
that's
things.
true.
And all of a sudden, like fast forward, because the film jumps a lot in time, like fast forward, he's just like any other man. He's just like the provider, and he's just like playing that role. But yeah, I think it was one of the only chances that women had to break free of the role, especially in the being a suburban housewife.
Yeah,
because
but because like the whole image of the housewife was like what it was actually advertised to women,
yeah,
after, during the war, women had to go outside, outside of the house and work to
women work
be.
in factories and also
Yes. They joined the workforce because there
yeah,
weren't like a lot of men. I think this is
yeah,
common knowledge for a lot of people. And this also happened in the first war. But once they got back, there was like this whole revival of the domestic wife and
yeah,
anything that would go, it's like going against the norm if you think about it. The norm at the time, I usually think of April and her want not only to go to Paris, but even like just being an actress, something that goes against the norm. The whole image of the housewife and the whole work from the society to try to confine again this woman in the household was also something that was very curated. It's like an image that was advertised. Betty Friedan, she actually writes this and addresses this in her second chapter of the Feminine Mystique. And I will quote, "This image, created by the woman's magazine, by advertisements, television, movies, novels, columns, and books, by experts on marriage and the family, child psychology, sexual adjustments, and by the popularizers of sociology and psychoanalysis, shapes women's lives today and mirrors their dreams." End quote. What it's interesting about this quote is how much the amount of sources that were building and were contributing to just confine women again in this role and how do you like work against it when everything in your society is saying you should be like this, and even like psychology saying not only like advertisement and movies but like everything else, and maybe just in being an actress was like actually, how do you say, like an exception, that
yeah.
women could like you said, there was like an exception that actresses were there to portray like different possibilities and fulfill like a desire that was never to be attained, being a femme fatale, being like a lover, being independent and stuff like that, because it was like you can dream about it but don't you ever dare to do this, because an actual woman, an actual well-tamed woman should be a housewife woman.
That's the main reason you have the baby boomer generation, because women were kept at the house again when they were like, as you said, gather around like they were herds, like gather around and put back in their place. Because like you had all that problem, women go out, they work during the Second World War, but men come back and men have to work. So you have this major replacement of the workforce by the men that came back. All of a sudden, you have all these works being created, and some of the works that didn't exist come about at this time, because it goes back to the bullshit jobs by David Graeber. Then you start creating jobs that they aren't needed, so that you can have people working. You have like the suburban housewife, even the urban housewife had the same problems. As
Although,
long as
you have the urban wives would have a bit of more freedom in the
oh
career
yeah,
field,
because
and you have, the girl that Frank sleeps with,
but she's single.
Maureen, I think that's her name.
Yeah, but she's
Um,
single. Like there was a difference between being single and being married.
yeah, true. That's also true. Yeah.
So like the angle that you're presenting, it's pretty true, because even not knowing about it, like the story of the book or even the film, but the film has a bit more knowledge. But like the book is a very feminist book,
It
because
is,
it actually
in a way, yeah.
shows what feminism is all about. And it shows how men are trapped in these patriarchy ideals, because no one is happy about it. He does a job that he doesn't even understand. He keeps saying this during the film, like he doesn't even understand the job that he does. And when he's getting pressure from his boss, he creates something, like he comes up with some stupid idea and all of a sudden he gets a promotion.
Yeah, I mean, he was doing that to actually, I think, get fired or like
Yeah,
just to
something like that,
people like,
because he was
because
just fed up.
they already decided to go to Paris back when he made that joke, and but then like everything turned around and he got the
Yeah,
promotion,
he got the
and
promotion and all that. Men came back to the workforce, and many came back to these created and invented jobs. like their masculinity was taken away from them.
Yeah, and
Because
that's
all of
also
a
like a
sudden,
way of going like to actually regain purpose in a society, you
yeah,
know. You go to war, that's your purpose, to fight for your country, defend it. But when the war is over and you go back to your city, your family, whatever, you have to gain a new purpose, you know, you
yeah,
have to regain that purpose. And for men and for patriarchy, that's providing for the family, that's being the one that works. And this is why it's also very weird when April like says, you know what, I will work. You
yes,
even see the other couple making like fun of her. You know,
yeah.
she suggests for them to relocate to Paris, you know, start a new life. Frank would be the one to follow the dreams and look for a job that he really enjoys. And this is also something very different, because not only the whole thing about men going back from war to work, it's not like come back to war and work whatever you want and something that you enjoy, but like just work, you know, just provide again for
Oh,
not
yeah.
only the family, but the country. You know, you are still serving the country. Frank is also very much convoluted in this whole idea that women shouldn't work back then in the 50s. It was like Frank doesn't even take her idea seriously when she suggests, like, he
No,
even
no.
laughs, remember, and Lettel calls it a fantasy and irrational.
He
And
doesn't even take
going,
the secretary, like,
oh, yeah, yeah, he
she
doesn't.
doesn't even take her into account. She's just there to fulfill the needs.
Yeah, Friedan actually, just going back to the feminine mystique, although it's an outdated book in terms of feminism, and just to make like this disclaimer, for sure it is an outdated book, because nowadays we are not dealing necessarily with a lot of the issues that the book actually had to move forward. Nonetheless, I feel like for this movie, it's actually pretty convenient to quote, especially because both Richard Yates and the Betty Friedan book came around the same time, and they discuss a lot of the same issues. Friedan actually comments that the expression career woman became like a dirty word in America.
Yeah, even if you look like in popular culture, if you look into the movie trends of all they're quite funny because they show movements in popular culture. You have the men coming back and the men have to work and all that sort, and the woman goes back to their house and they have babies. And then you have the baby boomer generation. That's why everyone has so many babies, because there's nothing else to do. There are women that they want to break out from this world. They want to be actors, they are teachers, and they are nurses and all that. And all of a sudden, you also have, for the first time, a thing, which is the women that were widowed by the war.
Yes.
So you have the women that were widowed by the war, and some of them, they actually are now like the head of the household. They're kind of free because they don't have their men. They can do whatever. They can work in what sorts. And what you see in popular culture, like in the movie sense and everything, that's when you have the noir films and the femme fatale figure coming up.
Yes, I mean, it was coming during the late 30s and 40s, especially in movies. And then like in the 50s, you had like the whole melodrama, especially the American melodrama, which really emphasizes a different kind of woman. But you had that contrast with the femme fatale, which
Yeah,
was actually the opposite, you know. Even in color theory, like film noirs were like black and white, and while
yeah.
American melodramas were like full saturated with color. It was
But melodrama was there to show like this woman, this obedient woman, and the woman that wants love above all, and love and everything about love. And the femme fatale is the independent woman, isn't it? But there are films in the 50s that became really, really popular because of this idea that an independent woman can kill you.
yeah, I
Which,
mean, the thing is, even in the 20s, we had the femme fatale in itself. It's like a concept that you can even go back to like the like the old age, and you can
oh
find
yeah,
this type
sure.
of archetype. But but in terms of entertainment, you have in the 20s, you have a lot of women, especially like in Europe, a lot of you know, dancers and actresses that it was really molded into the vamp archetype, and the femme fatale were really like
Yeah.
in together. And then like the movies were, you know, kind of growing and developing different types of genres. And then the femme fatale that we know from noir actually was born But the whole idea of the femme fatale, this woman that it's independent, she's sensual, she's a man killer with
Yeah.
her sensuality, and she's not obedient. She is fatale in a way, like just it's a French expression for literally
Yeah.
like a
Deadly.
woman that kills. Yeah, deadly woman.
Yeah.
And from the entertainment industry, especially, this was something that was actually common in the 20s and a bit earlier too.
Yeah, but he
But
also
yeah,
brings up
yeah.
the phrase she's not fit to marry because you
Because
all
she's not obedient, because
yeah,
she's not a housewife, actually.
she's Lilith
Yeah, she's
reincarnated.
Lilith. Yeah, she's not Eve. And
Yeah.
Eve kind of wanted to be a bit of a fatale,
Yeah, she
but then
tried.
she was kind of like punished for it. But she's not a Lilith for
Yeah,
sure.
but the man killer has been there since old ages. Like you have cultures where women cannot cook when they are in their period because it's poisonous, all sorts of ideas. There's actually an awesome book written by a woman anthropologist, Purity and Danger, which is all about this idea of the dirty and the clean. A woman fit to marry is a clean woman. And this goes back across all cultures.
Is that Mary Douglas?
Yes, that's Mary
Yeah,
Douglas.
that's Mary Douglas. Yeah.
And woman independence becomes like a danger. Even in this film, like when they argue, when they fight and everything, and all of a sudden, then the next scene, her expression changes, and she's like the obedient woman again. If she prepares like a meal or something, or like he always seems like that Frank is a bit afraid of eating.
Yeah,
Like,
you're talking about the breakfast scene, right?
right in the
I
that's where
loved
you
that
see the
scene. I
most.
loved, yeah.
That's where you see the most. But even when John comes out to the house for the first time with his parents and everything, like, and she prepares a meal and everything because they had a bit of an argument before. If I'm not mistaken, Frank is actually the last one to touch the food because he
That's a
always,
nice observation. I didn't
yeah.
even like observe Frank. You know what? Trusting women to be in the kitchen is like one of the most dangerous things you
Oh,
can
yes.
do. Like, do you really learn how to do your own food?
I've
Because you don't
always
know
said it.
if I get pissed, if I
Oh,
get
yes.
pissed,
Yes.
and it's not spit that I'm talking about.
Mm-mm. Yeah, I've always said
But
like I had a colleague in the anthropology course. She was like there's a thing called I don't know how to call it in America, but like it's like kind of food anthropology, which is the study of humankind through the manufacture of food and how food and different types of food contribute to the culture.
I
And
love
it's very interesting. And I used to joke around with her saying like it's because she's very feminist, of course. And I was really like, why are you so pissed with men? Because women have all the power. You just add a bit of salt every meal and you kill the guy in about 7, 8 years.
That is so true.
Yeah.
What?
So I said, you have all the power. What you talking about? So men, break away from this patriarchy and do your own food before you get killed.
That's the lesson. That's the lesson. Okay, that's the conclusion. Thank you. We'll see you next episode.
But that's another thing I want to say, like about the job situation, because in that book, Graeber says something really cool. He says that in order for people to like the job they are doing, people have to have the sense that they are acting changed. They are having an impact on reality, not on the world itself, but on reality. You have to have something to do. That's why with bullshit jobs, like jobs as Frank has, he doesn't even know what he does.
He
They're
just
very
knows that his father worked there
yeah,
for
his
I don't know
father
how
worked
many
there, but no one
years.
remembers his father. Uh, and but it's like if you're not acting, if you're not doing anything, if you're not changing anything, the job itself becomes stressful because you lose the purpose. But this is not valid only for men; it's valid for women also. The thing is, with the housewife, women were given perfect chance to act on the world because they were raising kids. They could change the mentality in an entire generation. And men were kind of stuck on these jobs that they didn't do anything. Basically, they just sat around and smoked and drink. The only person that you actually know what they do is John, that was an academic and his brain fried, and he had to have shock
And it's
therapy.
John's mom too,
And
right?
John Mums sells houses, but she's like the gatekeeper of the community, isn't she? By selling houses, in the community, she gets to decide who lives there and who doesn't, which is a
Oh, yeah,
very
yeah.
motherly thing to do.
You know, now that we are in those characters, I just want to like say, do you remember the last scene where she's like actually tall trashing the Wheelers
Oh yeah,
and the husband is
it
listening, but then he just
it
turns
turns
off
off the hearing of
the
aid.
hearing device,
Yeah,
and we also don't listen to anything that she's
anything
saying.
like it just
And I'm
doesn't
like,
matter.
that's the secret to a marriage, isn't
Yeah,
it? Like this is what it
stop
I
listening.
thought it was so funny because she loved the Wheelers, and the
Yeah,
husband was like, "So what about the Wheelers? Like you are, what is?"
yeah,
And she just changes. She's like, "Nah, the Wheelers. You know, I've always thought something was wrong with them. Nah, nah, nah." And then she just goes on, and the husband just stays there and
yeah.
stares at her, and he's like, "Okay, I've had enough." So he just turns off. But do you feel like sometimes that's like the last scene actually got me thinking a bit like for it's very comedic thinking about it like oh yeah he just turns off the hearing device, but
Yeah.
like do you feel like in a way there was like a message to think about in a marriage maybe
Yeah,
sometimes the
I think
compromising also goes with the like just not responding, or just sometimes you gotta take in with the bullshit that your partner does and just
oh
turn
yeah,
off.
you just need to turn off. The thing is, like nowadays, very different from the society, and people are just not like willing to like keep up with the bullshit of the other. When you meet someone, and you normally meet someone around 23, 25 years old, and that someone will be your long life partner. It might not be the only long life partner that you have, but it will be the first. For much as you study, for much as you study social sciences and all sorts of stuff, you will buy into these patriarchy ideals. And most people are like fair weather friends. It's the
What
first
I didn't get that.
most people, most couples are fair weather friends.
Oh,
Like everyone is happy and everyone is okay as long as everything goes fine.
smoothly and
Yeah.
fine, yeah. And there is
So
no
the
like
first time
rocky
someone
roads.
loses a job, the first time someone they have a problem to solve, they go straight into arguing, then end up in separation or divorce if they're married and whatnot.
Which, I feel like it's a bit naive. It's a bit of a naive response because
Oh, of course.
because it's like life, it's not an easy road,
Mm.
personally, like in your personal life, just living by yourself, your own development, you will have like rocky times, you will have
Oh yeah.
lower times, you will have problems, you will have, it doesn't matter. But by having a partner, those problems will not go away. You will have personal problems, but you will also have like problems within the relationship. This is something that everyone knows, but everyone seems to forget when actually the problems start to happening, and I know like the first reason for people to get divorced is money problems,
Oh yeah.
and either it's money or the cheating, sex problems, whatnot. I think like these are the top ones. So you have like a lot of these problems, and some of them are really just a deal breaker for sure.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that some of these problems aren't just the end of the line, but this is something, like you said, it's something that I do see people give up too easily because they expect good relationship to be always good, where that's not realistic.
No,
And I feel
it's
like
not.
talking about it is very easy and it's very intuitive, and it's like, yeah, sure, relationships, couples do fight, do have problems, whatnot, anything like that. But it seems to me that nowadays, when you actually get into a relationship and you have this in mind, but you kind of forget it, like then you have a fight and you're like super turned off, and you're like, I don't want to fight, I don't want to be with you. And it's like, that's not the point. Listen, I have like this rule to actually call someone a friend. A friend, like,
Yeah, yeah.
oh, we actually are not just acquaintances, we are friends. It's when we hang out, no matter the place. You know that thing about I'm only your friend, or I only talk to you because we see each other in the same place every
Yeah,
day.
yeah,
This is
yeah,
like
yeah.
school friends,
Mm-hmm.
you're only friends because you go to school and you see each
Yeah,
other every day. But you are actually friends whenever you can hang out,
yeah.
either place, like outside, in the home, at school, it doesn't matter the place. And the second rule is you have a fight.
Yeah.
If we have a fight, then it's real, like, and we actually get through that fight, then it means like we actually have a relationship, a human relationship, and it's not just something that it's an acquaintance relationship. I don't know if you get me.
Yeah, I get you. It's
It's a
very
good
true.
sign. I
It's
don't
a
know.
good sign. Yeah, that makes all sense. Say, I'll just add that there's a huge difference between a friend and a love interest, but you buy into this thing where two people become one. And this is a very romantic idea. It's not like this at all. Like two people become two people working for a common goal. Two people don't become one. That's just silly.
It's the whole soulmate myth of
Yeah.
Aristophanes, if I am not saying the
Yeah,
name
it's
in
like it's
English incorrect, but I
like
don't know
that.
if people know this, but if they know the myth, but it's basically the soulmate myth is like a very
There's
long
a
time
special
ago, there
one.
is a split in the humans, you know,
Yeah.
and we spend our life looking for our other half because we were split.
But it's like it I always remember like the Jerry Maguire film, like with Tom Cruise in the end coming to Renee Zellweger and saying like, "You complete me," with that crazy like look on his face, like very psychotic, going like, "You complete me."
I feel like that's a turn off. It's like, what do
Yeah,
you
it's
mean I
like,
complete you? Are you so
yeah,
dependent?
yeah. That's the point, isn't it? But that's the Greek myth. You're always looking for the person that completes you, and you'll be like, but why? Why are you complete? Are you missing a leg, or are you missing?
Apparently,
Yeah.
apparently in the Greek myth we are missing.
Yeah,
We are
but
missing two legs and two arms and another set of head. It's like, yikes, no.
yeah, but it's like, but you do buy into all this. Everything that is shown in that film, that it's criticized, you actually buy into this. No matter how you can be a PhD in anthropology, you can know how why marriage exists and how relations work, but you will buy into this. Like when your emotional state actually defeats your rational side, all of a sudden, well, sometimes when you come out of a relationship and you start thinking, you be like, but why did I went through that? Why did I allow someone to say that to me? Like, it's weird. It's very weird when you actually go back and analyze. It's like you have like April. You have a woman that wanted to be independent and all that, and all of a sudden she's stuck in the kitchen with the dress and the apron just because she got pregnant, because that's why they get together and married. She got pregnant.
The whole suburban life, it's the American dream, you know?
Yeah.
And why isn't April happy? This is like the mentality of the time in a way. I mean, not everyone, but this is the whole philosophy. It's like if the American dream supposes that the way of life has reached its final destination, you know, like this is the life, this is the dream. The way of living is perfect, and therefore nothing else is needed. The perfect image comes to life. You know, this is the suburban.
Yeah.
This is how a couple behaves. This is what you do. These are the roles, whatnot. So, like the role of women as housewives is the ultimate role, as the perfect role that should satisfy women. I mean,
Yeah.
right? That's logic.
Yeah, that's
So
the idea. But
then,
it
when
comes
you
back to this
actually fight
completion
this,
thing. Like if you think about it, like one works, one stays at the house and keeps it clean and all sorts. So you have a beautiful house to come back to. It's very important for the man to have kids so that he passes on his lineage, right? His genetic heritage. So the woman provides the kids. But in order for the kids to grow up and everyone to live, everyone has to eat. So the man provides the food. And he actually says this in a rant, doesn't he? I pay for the house, I pay for the bills, I pay for the food.
yeah.
I'm out there hunting the entire time because it goes back to this. It goes back to the hunter-gatherer idea that we have, that men, like fit men, will go out and hunt, and women will stay in the village, like taking care of all the furs and all that, taking care of the kids and preparing food so that when the man arrives with the buffaloes on their backs, like
Yeah.
you get all this. But nowadays they don't come with buffaloes home, do they? They come with dollars, and they come with bank accounts and with salaries and all that. And this is the main thing, because you kind of, when you start this construction, like the American dream is actually going back like, almost like to the primitive idea that we have for society
Yeah.
for 10,000 years ago. you don't live in caves, or you don't live in clay
Well,
houses.
it doesn't matter where you live. It's like the
Yeah,
philosophy of life.
yeah, yeah,
It's the concept, the ideology in itself. And this is what for me it's like April like doesn't really want to go to Paris if you think about it. It's
yeah.
not Paris. It's
It's just
Paris
an
is like an euphemism to her
yeah,
dreams, to the idea of possibility, to the idea of another future, to the idea of breaking free, to the idea of not being a housewife. Like Paris is all of it, you know. It's not
and
like
it's when they're
Paris. It could
happy.
be yeah, it could be another city, it could be another
Yeah,
country. It doesn't matter. It could be Paris, it could be another city in France. It doesn't really matter. It's what going outside would do to her, you know.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
And
Funny thing with that is that only Frank starts learning French.
I mean, she was like, yeah, I mean, I could be a secretary for
For
the
NATO, and like I don't
for
need
yeah,
to speak French, but it's like he's the only one like starts reading like a French book kind of thing, like to learn French.
yeah, true, true.
And that only goes to show that what you're saying about her purpose in going, isn't it?
Yeah, I also feel like this whole idea, Frank ends up saying yeah to the idea of moving, but he's also a bit apprehensive at first because, and especially the whole idea changes and changes when April gets pregnant, you know,
Yeah,
and he tells her that, and you know, you can definitely see even like when they're arguing about the abortion for the first time, the fact that this is even a discussion. Frank sees this as going against the woman's role, you know, the wife role and the feminine role. So the answer is to see a psychoanalyst, because
yeah.
clearly April is unwell and she
Oh,
wants
yeah.
to abort and turn her back to the primary and biological role that her uterus enables her of giving birth. It's like, forget Paris, like
There's a
being a
kid
mother is
coming.
much more important.
But
And
there's an important scene that like even calls her deranged, doesn't he? Even said that she's
yeah, yeah,
deranged.
yeah,
But that's an important thing. Like when she asks him, like, do you want to be a father? He doesn't reply. Because the thing is, this kid is coming and he has to come because it's my role as a man to put kids in the world, as if we actually did it. But it's like, no, this kid is coming because you're taking care of it. The idea of fatherhood was so different back then. Like you even see this in Tree of Life, but Terrence Malick. Brad Pitt
yeah,
goes out and he travels the entire country working, and when he comes back, he just like, oh, are the kids alive? Like his entire thing is, are the kids alive? Everything's okay. You have food. They have food. They have clothes. Okay, it's fine. Let me read my newspaper. There's no connection to the father and son. There's nothing there. Even
in terms
Frank.
of nurturing, in terms
Yeah,
of educating it, it's just I provide,
yeah, and
and you
that's
have like
it.
a, you're not a homeless, you're not a stray kid, you know. That's
Like
the whole
you
point.
don't even see Frank playing much with his kids or anything like that. You see like a scene or two, but it's not like it's one of those things like let's oh, you want to ride the bike. So it's the man that goes and teach how to ride the bike, never the mother. But
Yeah.
women know how to ride bikes also. The film or the book should be right there and be used because it was written by a man, but it should be there like in the feminist struggle, saying like read what this man wrote, because he actually wrote about this childhood most probably, but it's like read about this because even men are unhappy with their roles in society.
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, he actually, but he brings so much themes. It's not only the idea of breaking free and from this American dream and this household and role and both roles of a husband and a wife, but he also does the whole theme of the abortion is something that
Yeah,
it's also very prevalent in the second wave feminism, you know, where it was granted for women to have a right to choose in America. In the 50s, the whole idea of abortion was still ruled by the whole mentality that was gained during the French Revolution of what is a fetus, you know, because the whole because before that the like babies, maternity, fetus, you know, the unborn
yeah,
is it was it was a woman's problem. No one would have anything to say, and it wasn't necessarily seen as something separate. It's a part of that body, so I don't know, I don't have anything to do with it. Although, so if women aborted or they gave birth, it was for the Greeks, it was like it's not a man's problem,
Oh yeah.
and like for religion, it was something seen as a bit bad because, if you were bored, it was like you were interrupting God's divine creation and the whole gestation, it was something seen a bit of a wrong in terms of religion. Either way, it was like a woman's problem. It was a woman's issue, like the pregnancy, the gestations, everything, the birth, women helped other women knew how to abort, because the whole thing wasn't really associated as something different, which is the discussion nowadays. And then like the French Revolution and the Enlightenment and the new science kind of like changed the things. It was like, wait a second, maybe abortion, it's a public matter,
Yeah.
maybe because we are able to see the fetus now, maybe we are giving it an individuality, and therefore the mother and the unborn are two different things. Now, the matter of abortion started to be something very heavy as in a discussion, and you have to put the ethical questions into discussion that puts both positions are incompatible. So it's like, whose life is more important? And this is the discussion that we see nowadays still.
Yeah.
And the 50s were still a time of these social thoughts. The Revolutionary Road case, although is not explicit, think about how the 50s were a post-war time, and the domestication of the woman also meant procreating and giving birth, like you said, to make up for the loss of the country during the war. Men died at war, women can give birth, so just make up for that loss. Women were not only growing their families, but they were growing the country. Like, men were not only working to provide for the family, they were working also to provide again for the country. And this changed in 60s, 70s. It's like called like the third phase of the abortion discussion. Like in the 70s, like the second wave actually started the whole discussion to like, wait a second, let's make this discussion a bit different and maybe give women the right to choose if they want to abort or not. And this is why I feel like the whole April aborting and deciding to abort by herself, which ends up badly, spoiler alert, is something that I found fascinating, that
It's
Richard
a
Yates
punishment,
had wrote.
isn't it?
Yeah.
Because
In a
what
way,
happens to her, it's the moral punishment. Because she goes out, like spoiler alert, she goes out and does the abortion on using like this very primitive instrument.
it's a rubber syringe.
Yeah.
It's a suction device. So
Yeah.
basically, it was
But-
you suck up the fetus.
Yeah.
It's a very dangerous performance, but
Yeah.
also shows, and something that I usually say a lot is like, the problem is not if you illegalize abortion.
No.
The problem is not like women will not abort. We will. We always knew how to abort.
It's the risky
illegally.
procedure.
Like,
It needs to be safe. It needs to make it safe. Her death is a moral punishment of her actions, because in the end you come up with this very, like, this widow, doesn't very soppy widow, and he cries. Everyone cries because everyone loved her. But the thing is that no one actually knew her. Like the psychotic neighbor that was always peeping to a house and everything, like, they don't actually know her as a person. Like, even the husband knows little of her.
I think this movie, although sad, beautifully shot, but with very sad themes, it's not necessarily a very known movie, although it
No,
has
it wouldn't be.
Leo and Kate. I feel like a lot of people don't know they made like this movie, which is one of the reasons why I chose it, because not only of the themes that we can discuss, but also because they did another movie that's actually pretty good, and it's not just like a big boat. I didn't know you haven't watched it. I hope you liked it. Did you?
I did love it. I love it because of all the things that you can discuss about it, and
Yeah.
and the themes of it. Like, I remember not watching and not going to the movies because the entire marketing device around this movie was that Leonardo DiCaprio and Kate Winslet, they were doing another film. Like, because you have this idea that they've been like the perfect couple, isn't like the poor guy, the rich girl, they met in a boat and they fall in love, but society doesn't want them. It's just a nice way of retelling Romeo and Juliet all over again, but you take the family feud out of it.
You know what's funny? How is the name of that philosopher? I can never say that the Slavoj Zizek.
Oh, you got me like Eastern European names are not for me.
I mean, it should be for me, you know, but
Yeah.
like, you know, I just failed my country. But but the thing is, oh my God, what's his name? I don't know. You know what? This episode is mispronouncing names, and
Yeah.
that's okay. And that's okay. Like we all have, no one knows how to pronounce my name, for instance, so
Yeah.
it's fine. But I read somewhere like he said, you know what? It's not like so tragic that Jack and Rose didn't end up together because
Yeah.
like Rose wouldn't actually end up with him. He's
No.
poor. She doesn't want to be poor.
Yeah.
So at the end of it, like she
Just a
she
fantasy,
like
isn't
throws
it?
the diamond in the
Yeah.
ocean because like yeah, I mean that was just a fling in the boat. It was like a
Yeah.
summer fling in the 1910s.
And if you can throw the diamond out, it means how rich you are. Like you are throwing money away. It's like you
Yeah,
don't do
she
stuff like that. Poor people don't do that.
she knew that he would fit on that board, but she was like, yeah, drown because
Yeah,
whatever.
you fit your
And
purpose.
she knew that if he was alive, revolutionary road, oh my, road, you know, would be real. They
Oh
would
yeah,
actually
in their life.
fight.
Yeah. Yeah, but it is. But I was saying like that because the marketing was always around that. I was like, I'm gonna miss this film, and it didn't
Anyway,
really caught to my attention. It's be like, why are you doing this? I know it would be like, I do like some Mendes films. I always said I'm gonna regret this because one day I'm gonna watch this film and I'm gonna go, Sam Mendes is genius. Again, Sam Mendes is descent from a Portuguese man.
well, of course, Mendes,
Yeah, they were kicked out of Portugal during the when Protestants were being chased off. So
Oh,
they went to the
okay.
Caribbean. But this is the thing with Portugal. They kicked out his great-grandfather. But when we came to his great-grandfather, Portugal was like, well, I'm sorry we kicked you out, but since you are in the Caribbean, can you be our consul? This happens all across Portuguese history.
Hypocrisy at its
Yeah.
peak. You know what?
Yeah.
I
And
can't.
then his father went to England and married his mother. But yes, Mendes is actually they come from Madeira Island.
I'm really glad you liked the movie.
Oh yeah, I loved
I
it.
hope you guys liked it too. If you haven't watched it, then go and watch it, and then talk to us, and say like, did you disagree with everything we said? Do you want to add something? We hope we didn't spoil everything, but if we did, well, oops. Nonetheless, I really enjoyed the discussion. This episode was great. Hopefully, you too.
Oh yes, lovely. I love to debate this. I love to talk as a man and explain what feminism is. I'm
Yeah,
joking.
I love when a man explains to me what women's problems were
Yeah.
in like in the course of the history. I love it. Mansplain to me, please.
Yeah.
Anyway, thank you so much for listening. We really enjoy the support, the participation you've been doing with our episodes. Hopefully, we'll see you next time and follow us on our socials, talk to us. Thank you.
Thank you for listening and keep in touch with us. And if you want, just throw us questions or anything that you want so we can read those questions and answer them.
Yeah, that would be cool. That would be cool. Let's build a community. Let's just talk about movies and like join the basement. What are you doing? Like it's cozy here. Come on.
Yeah.